And we think after, working on this since 2002, it ought to be even sooner, and when it comes, it should not be a dribble into the marketplace. It ought to be really massive, because we don't have time to wait. We can't let this happen slowly. We want it to be successful, and we want to work with the car makers to give them whatever they need to make it successful. We want to find whatever encouragement and whatever methods can do that. We're also internationalizing the campaign. Outside you can see this book, the World Wildlife Fund's report by an Exxon energy specialist about the international implications of plug-in cars. It's a great book, and you can get a copy. We're basically moving from simply talking about plugging in cars to that broader message that it's time to electrify transportation as much as possible. And what that means is something in addition to getting car makers to build new plug-in cars, something that we have really only begun to think about, and we think there are enormous business opportunities and enormous opportunities for government, which is to do something about the 950 million cars on the road today, the internal combustion engine cars. What if we could take 20 or 30% of those cars and power them partially by electricity? In terms of comparing that to the market penetration of new plug-in hybrids, that would have a much faster petroleum displacement benefit. And so we're looking at that, and there are a lot of good solutions. And we have a new recruit to the cause of plug-in hybrids this week, Andy Grove, the former chairman of Intel. He has been talking enthusiastically about that, and you can get his article, which is going to be in the American in a couple weeks, outside. And he's going to become a real strong advocate for that particular point, which is how can we convert those cars that are on the road today through a combination of energy service companies, federal incentives, and so forth. And the last thing is, what are we going to do about this presidential campaign, and what's going to happen in it? The model I have is really, I'm not a lawyer, but the model I have is a stipulation. We are working, we hope that the candidates will agree, just as they have about Darfur, just as they have about the California emissions, that plug-in cars will not be a campaign issue, that they agree on it, and that the car makers of the world need to get the message now that whoever is the president, next year, the whole situation is going to change. There are going to be massive new promotional programs, incentives, and so forth. We hope it's along the lines of what David Sandalow has presented in his points in the book. But we think that if the car makers knew that now, their business models would have to adjust to take that into account now, not next January. And a year makes a tremendous difference in terms of energy security and CO2 emissions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Wow, it's hard.
Thank you.
It's hard to follow that. I ought to just say me too. You know, when David first mentioned this conference to me, I don't think either one of us would have envisaged the great crowd of people that we have in this room and the enthusiasm that we have behind this mission and cause. And I think that answers your question about, you know, can we do this thing? Can we do it? I think absolutely, positively, and it's coming. I talk about the two transformational technologies in our business, and I think Peter Darby did a great job on that. And that is the smart grid. You know, we're going to have smart meters. We're going to have ways that communicate with you and allow you to use your electricity a lot more efficiently in the future. And we're going to have plug-in hybrid vehicles. And those things are going to transform our industry, but they're also going to transform the automobile and transportation industry. I think it's going to transform energy security in this country as well as the environment. And we are very, very dedicated in the electric utility industry. We think that time has come. You know, you can go back to Thomas Edison's time, and actually he was in favor of the electric vehicle at that point in time. A good buddy of his, Mark, was Henry Ford, and Henry Ford, Thomas Edison went off to do the utility industry. Henry Ford went off to do the auto industry and obviously chose a different path. But I think that for various reasons now, we see ourselves coming very much back close together. I think that, you know, in 1994, I signed an agreement with Al Gore, which was the first voluntary program to reduce global climate emissions, and it's still the largest and most effective in this country. But one of those programs we set up just as a long-term program, we didn't think it'd have any short-term effect, was a program called EV America. And it was a partnership with the auto companies and the electric companies to help develop the electric vehicle. Well, that was 1994. And Chelsea, I know you wrote the book, the movie, the great movie, Who Killed the Electric Car. But quite frankly, I think it's like Mark Twain. The report of his death was very premature. Nobody actually killed the electric car because it made progress. We made progress in the electric drive. We made progress in the batteries. We're making progress in a lot of the technology. And right now, we've got a whole different conception of what may be offered to the public. So I think that right now we have the political support for this. There is tremendous political support. There's support from companies right now. There's support from the auto industry right now, and I think that's going to change this whole dynamics in a major way. People in this country are mad, and previously when they're mad, they came up with things like the Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and that transformed society in a lot of ways, certainly from the time that I was growing up. And I think they're mad right now, and I think they want to get off OPEC. As Jim Woolsey said, I think we're going to see signs out there that say no PEC, no on oil, and purchase electric cars. No PEC, no on oil, purchase electric cars.
Great job. Alan.
I'm going to address the question of how long it will take for plug-in hybrids to have a significant impact on oil usage. You might want to write down your own estimate, and then I'll go through the analysis. The short answer is quite a long time, unfortunately. The long answer involves an analysis with three elements: assumptions, facts, and forecasts. Let's start with assumptions. I'm defining displacing a significant amount at 10% of the liquid fuels that are being used by the vehicle fleet. And I'm assuming that hybrids are operating 2/3 of their miles electrically. Many of you picked up a data book that I put together with some of my colleagues. There are some tables in that book that you may find useful when thinking about this presentation. Next are the facts. The number of light vehicles in service in the United States now is about 250 million, and it's growing about 1.75% per annum, which means approximately 4.3 million additional vehicles each year. The size of the fleet is important because plug-in hybrids will need to be at least 15% of the market in order to displace 10% of the liquid fuels. Since plug-in hybrids are likely to be disproportionately replace smaller vehicles, their fleet share may have to be a little bit higher than 15%. Annual new vehicle sales are 15 to 16 million vehicles. As you all know, annual sales of new vehicles are profoundly affected by demographics, by consumer sentiment, and by improved vehicle durability. And the choice of vehicle, obviously, is often affected by the price of fuel. Now, if we look at what's happened with hybrid vehicles to date in the United States, approximately 1 million have been sold, and that's over a period of in excess of 10 years. And we're only to 1 million. And the expectation is that this year we'll sell 400,000, which is approximately 2.7% of total sales. And now we come to forecasts. With 400,000 2008 sales and a 14% compound annual rate of sales growth, hybrid sales have recently been forecast by Morgan Stanley to grow to 2 million by 2020, which is about 13% of sales. Morgan Stanley's estimate for plug-in hybrids for the period from now to 2020 is 3.8 million plug-in vehicles, which leaves the 2020 hybrid fleet with no attrition at 1.2% of the total fleet.